This is The Secret Lies Within, and I'm John Trevelyan. For this show, we joined the Talliston Poetry Circle, which is a group of writers and readers of poetry that launched in September 2013. The Poetry Circle is a challenging and supportive group for all levels of talent and experience. Offering monthly meetings in a unique environment, its aim is to inspire poets to create their best, most engaging new work and to share their poems at a candlelit open mic evening. The following is a selection of poems that were read at the Talliston Poetry Circle in October this year. Well, welcome everybody to Talliston. We're going to have some readings of the poetry of the Talliston Poetry Circle. I'm going to kick off. I put in a poem to the National Poetry Competition. It was actually accepted to be published in their Poetry Rivals book that's coming out in January. So I thought, well, I might as well read that one because I'm really chuffed actually, because it's the first time my poetry is actually going to appear somewhere official. And just a little bit of a story about it. While being at Talliston and while building the house, I got into a situation where I didn't have a job for about sort of 4 months, 6 months. It turned out, I really thought I was going to lose the house. And I wrote this at that time. What it was about was their sort of life outside the house, about leaving the house behind, and we had to pack everything up and move it out so that we didn't have to pay council tax and all of these sorts of things. And I wrote this as a sort of, this is getting my mind into leaving the house and might not ever come back halfway through a project. The title refers to something that sounds like a ship or a zeppelin or something, and you'll see why when I read it. XSS Dreamfarer. Can anybody fly this thing? What happens when I flick this switch or press this button marked taking wing, or trim these sails of cumulus white, or bring alive these dials of night? What matters, really matters? Is it the journey or the destination? What matters, really matters, is that I have to go, to abandon my home, to go. But am I leaving it, or is it leaving me? Will I ever know? Will I ever see? When making for unknown destinations, all we can do is enjoy the day. And though it's helpful to take a book, it's just as important to remember to look out of the windows as you go. And don't always pray for sun, for rain's essential too, more essential then than sun, for infinite laughter levels to grey. An infinite sun makes a desert someday. So can anybody drive this thing? What happens when I turn this key or press the pedal marked nowhere now, or steer this wheel painted midnight blue, or try interchanging between the two? When making for Van Diemen's Land or blood-drenched Thermopylae, when trekking the road to Samarkand after trading one's life in Kathmandu, or riding the sands of Timbuktu, once you've drawn the knife of Iskander Bay, lived the wandering life of the last Sharoon, and bowed on beaches before Thul's restless foam, do not sit and long to be back home. So when asked, are we there yet? I answer, where yet? The end? For in life there's but one final destination, my friend. And roads, skies, seas and lives are for journeys, not for destinations. So can anybody sail this thing? What happens when I untie this line, or open this throttle of emerald and pearl, or set the telegraph for deep undersea, or try combinations of all three? It does not matter, the dreamfarers sing, for the journey is the destination, and the journeying is the thing. Thank you. I didn't lose the house, by the way. I'd just like to point that out, and that's why you're all here.
My name is Simon Banks. Well, this is also a poem with a story behind it. Like a lot of people, when I was student age, I wrote poetry, and then in my mid-20s probably, I stopped. For a long time stopped. Now, I'd wanted for some time to spend the night on top of a mountain. It was something which just appealed to me. But not too high a mountain, or it's not very healthy. And there's a mountain in mid-Wales, North Mid-Wales, called Cadair Idris, which has a refuge hut on top. It's not too far, and I like the climb. So I thought, OK, I'll do that. But Cadair Idris has a reputation in Wales. It's a place of spirits. It's a place, a sort of supernatural place. And there's a long-standing legend or myth that if you spend the night on Cadair Idris, the next day you're either mad or a poet, or a bard, presumably. And I thought this would be interesting to try. I actually, quite possibly, suggested to a Welsh friend of mine that he might like to come up too, and he said no, he'd just been married, and he didn't want to spend that amount of time away from his wife. But I think his wife actually quite liked the idea of him doing it, so I think he had other reservations. So I spent the night on Cadair Idris. And perhaps a couple of years later at work, which was the county council, there was a competition to write a Halloween-themed poem. Well, I thought, why don't I write about my night on Cadair Idris, where I didn't encounter any spirits, but I had a very deep experience with the sunset and the sunrise and other things in between. So I wrote the poem, and it won the competition. And I thought, OK, well, this poetry thing, I can do it, so let's write another one. So the myth or legend worked. I did become a poet. So this is the poem about it, called Spirit Mountain. Said to be haunted, source of strength and madness. Alone on the night mountain I wait, curious. Screeches and groans tear the night. Only I know they're ravens, not demons. Harbour lights, town lights, wandering headlights shine and are gloved into mist. Pale flame of sunrise, seascape afire. Ghosts? Then within us. But a trickle of Welsh blood speaking. Perhaps in the soil, out of time, sleeping. And just an explanation, first of all, that last verse I added a couple of hours after I wrote the rest, because I felt the previous conclusion was too neat and didn't really represent my mixed feelings on the subject. And the trickle of Welsh blood, I am 1/4 Welsh.
I'm Anthony Johey, and I spend a lot of time abroad because my wife is Lebanese, so I'm really not a resident here in England, but it's lovely to have, when I do come, to have the opportunity of coming to things like this. I try to go to as many groups as I can while I'm here, partly because it's nice to meet like-minded people, but also because it gives you a chance to give some exposure to your work. Because in Lebanon, really, I spend my time writing. In England, I spend my time trying to, give exposure to the work. I'm somebody who's actually really dedicated his best part of his life to literature, because like you, I was at Essex University, but I was in the literature department, and I went on and studied a long time there. And then having finished, I went to Ghana in West Africa, and then Tunisia, and I spent 18 years in Kuwait. And while I was in Kuwait, we had a writer's workshop. We used to meet every week, and what I'm going to read this evening came out of those workshops. In fact, meeting every week and writing every week, over 18 years, you can imagine I produced quite a lot of poetry in that time. And there's one particular collection which I've recently finished, called Poems of the East. It includes poems about Kuwait, but also about the Middle East, about Lebanon, for example, where I visited quite a lot before we actually lived there. And also the Far East, some trips abroad, to conferences and things like that. So the first poem I want to read, but we're going to have a second session, I gather, are we? Yeah. The first, and I'm actually going to read poems that have actually seen the light of publication day, because once you read them in public and they go over the air, then you can't submit them to to magazines. And so, but the copyright, when you do submit them to magazines and they're accepted, you retain the copyright. So after they've been published, then you can do what you like with them. So here I am, ready to read. This is called Skating in Kuwait. You see them coached to spin and turn, to form fine figures on sharp blades, girls with lithe legs and supple frames, taught by women who may once have reigned on rinks remote as Rome, Rio and Kyoto. These novices learn about the body's balance, bend of leg, stretch of arms, in practice daily on Suez frozen water. Here my daughter sprawled one melting afternoon, and I, old-jointed, joined her gingerly, holding fast at first to cool rail, while boys whizzed fast on fast blades, like cars on Jahra and on Fintas roads, reminding me of Saddam's men who here brought broken corpses to the morgue. There's a girl now taken by the ice, taking to it. She's seen those skaters reach for the air in figures of 3, 8 and dervish whirls, and now she's out there mirroring their moves, not fine-footed in loaned boots with blunt blades and collapsed ankles, but elated, notwithstanding, arms beating like wild swans, wheeling in great broken wings. Only not like them, she's in abaya black, no ugly duckling though, scarf covered, imagining lithe glides, pirouettes, 3 leaps, the bell beat of wings, her figure flying on ice.
Oh, I really like that.
My name is Sarah, Sarah Ragg, and I'm mainly a writer of prose stories and things like that. And in my profession, I'm a copywriter. But I've just recently come into wanting to write poetry, and that's mainly came about. There is a theme to my poems, and that's about getting old and old age. Because when I turned 50, I just looked at life going rapidly downhill and bits falling off me and all that kind of thing, and just kind of, it got me thinking more deeply than I thought it would. So quite a bit of poetry has come out of that. So and one of the things about getting older is that you tend to spend more time at the doctors and hospitals and things, checking up on the bits that are falling off. So yeah, this one I'm going to read is I was waiting for a prescription to be filed in the hospital pharmacy, and they took ages, and I was just sitting there getting angrier and angrier because the car park fees, which are high anyway, were totting up. So that's how this poem came about, and it's called When I Grow Up, I'm Going to Buy a Car Park. Are hospitals run for the benefit of patients or the company that runs the car park? You drive miles for the privilege of overpriced parking, then you wait for the doctor and wait a bit more, And then 2 seconds later you're out, clutching a prescription. It's internal only, says the nurse. You can only use it in the hospital. Well, bang goes the free parking at Tesco's then. And when you hand the prescription over, there's a half-hour wait, by which they mean an hour, leaving you stranded in the stuffy cafe drinking something they said is coffee, thinking about all the things you could be doing instead. Is this what ageing's all about? Paying for unnecessary parking as life ticks by? Wishing your cells could travel back in time so your future has more fresh air in it and you can focus your anger on things that really matter.
I haven't got anything to read, so this is from my memory banks. My name's Anna May. This is one of 3 poems that I won a spoken word competition in Camden called Utter, and the topic was agony. But I didn't actually know what the topic was, so I had to wing it.
Make that fit.
And so, but I won. So it's just like one of, like you say, you just sent that poem in and you won, and it's like it's mad. And this poem was born, if you like, because of a conversation I overheard. I was working for a hostel, never mind what kind of hostel. I was working in a hostel in London, and I overheard a conversation of these 2 young girls, and one of them said, "Well, I knew he was with a woman because the cops hadn't been round." And I kind of, what? You know, and I was kind of, my brain was kind of taking these words in that, you know, if someone didn't come home in my life, I'd think they were dead in a ditch, or, you know, they'd had an accident, not that they'd been arrested. So this poem was born from overhearing, and it's just one of those gifts. It's like manna from heaven. You know, sometimes these words just drop out of the sky at you, and you sort of grab them, and I've got to write that down. So, I know you're with a woman, 'cause the cops ain't been round. There's been no sight, there's been no sound, even your voicemail says you ain't around. The word on the street is that you're nowhere to be found. Well, I know your movements, I know the score. The fact you're out there whoring don't even make me sad no more. And when you've finished with that particular whore, honey, I won't be waiting around for you no more. It'll be me that's gone underground, and there won't be no sight, and there won't be no sound. They'll find my phone in the lost and found. I won't be needed to carry no link with you around. I'll dye my hair, I'll paint my face, 'cause between you and me, honey, I'm putting space. And that jewellery you bought me, well, if you did, I'll be selling that shortly to feed the kids. You've got some woman, you've gone underground, you should be thrown in the dog pound. I know you're with a woman 'cause the cops ain't been round.
Hi, my name's Ekta, and I got into poetry through the love of rhyming. I think when I would read books when I was younger, like Dr. Seuss and things, I always was attracted to the rhymes that he could come up with, and so I started writing poetry properly in my early teens, and I also started to listen to hip hop, which is probably my main influence for writing poetry. So my style is kind of like that as well, so it's a bit of a rap. This poem, I don't have a name for it, but it's mainly about how a lot of people in the youth today don't feel like they can make a difference in the world because they feel like the world's too big and their impact doesn't make a difference. So it's just mainly about that. Your mind is clouded, there's no light in this room, but we're here to flip the switch, let your young hearts bloom. Listen to the sound, see the light through the gloom. They say we can't escape from this doom, can't make a difference, but one light bulb in the room shines bright fluorescence. Remember, one star gives life to us all. The sun amongst the planets keep us in awe. Our downfall is humans love to brawl, clouded minds rainfall, so we can't stand tall. I'm here writing rhymes, spread love and peace, always staying away from that selfish clique. I'm surrounded by demons in the city of London, cause I see the world is made of dungeons, and I'll battle through any time, anywhere. Elements of the world, earth, fire, water, air, vibes and connections, dimensions, reflections, aspects of your personalities, and only once we master these can we become disciplinary before we hit the cemeteries while our souls are blessed in heaven, blazing them trees. Thank you.
I wanted to write a poem about the house, and it was very, very difficult to write because it's very easy to walk into the house and see the house and everything, but when you're trying to describe it, especially in a poem, it's very, very difficult. What I wanted to do is I wanted to sort of come up with what the house felt like to walk into for the first time, and that was very difficult for me because I knew it too well. So, and what I came up with in the end was about this one line again, you know, that somebody said. I was talking to people and saying, you know, what's it like to walk into the house and all this, and they said, oh well, you know, it's sort of like a dare. So I like the interplay of words about a dare, that somebody would dare you to go and do, like, oh, it's the creepy house that you have to dare to go into and knock on the door or something. And also about being daring and everything. Talliston in Old English means the hidden place. Tallis meaning hidden and ton meaning a place. And there's also the inference of being a hidden place in the wood as well, which was quite important. Enter this house, those who dare. Let its arms embrace. Let your fingers touch its stone, its wood, its linen lace. Stroke your hand upon its back. Entangle in its hair, lose your shoes, let your toes caress the carpets on its stair. Hear the gate at first footfall which leads to woodlands, gardens, hall, found through the many bolted door to rooms and dens and chambers there. Light and colour, music, sound, butterflies, mirrors and clocks surround. Leave behind the threshold stone, to walk within is to walk alone. Windows shine their stained glass glare. Enter this house, those who dare. Let its carpets caress your toes as you stare. Feel its senses entangle in your hair. Stroke its hand upon your back, your cloth defences. Let its fingers touch your skin, your bone. Let your arms embrace. For all things come in the emptiness there. Enter this house, those who dare.
This poem I wrote when I was coming out of quite a difficult time, a time of a lot of stress, and writing poems like this was part of the process of coming out of that. So it's quite a dark poem, but not without hope. And it came out of thinking about early humans, whether Stone Age, Bronze Age, whatever, the extraordinary inventiveness and courage and the things they achieved in very difficult circumstances, and then thinking of what we've made of that and the way we're wrecking the planet. And it's centred on a place, Callanish, which is a stone circle on Lewis and the Outer Hebrides. So it's called Callanish, winter solstice. The stones do not speak, they do not move, they are intense, apart. They will say nothing to the darkening sea, the wandering visitors in bright cagoules, the impoverished and water-sodden soil. They spoke once, in a moment's flutter of day, in the northern winter's night, moment when time stood still, new birth at winter's turn. Cold-handed celebrants gathered around, welcomed the sun, its covenant, renewed the hard-won order of stony fields. That welcome is long gone, grown cold, as women whose shattered skulls bore witness to the dark side of the sun. Neither the magical smith nor carver of mythical fish on soft stones will answer a call. What happened to that wonderful inventiveness? Carousal of light and song, iridescent fly picked apart, whispering forest butchered for the giant's unreal hoard under clawing black roots. Soft words to a chasm. The human time may be nearly over, and then the embossed golden shield with lost words, foretelling the end and beginning, a glorious tragedy ending, will tumble and shatter. Or will there be new words spoken round Callanish ring, still unbroken?
This follows on quite nicely from Tech's poem, and you'll know why when I read it. I just want to give you a bit of a context, though. It belongs to Poems of the East, and actually it's when I was in Kuwait, I was lucky enough to be able to have a course in acupuncture, all on the national health system there. And I got to know the doctors and the nurses very well, and so I wrote a poem for each of the doctors and nurses that looked after me. One of them was called Doctor Who, and he was struggling to learn English, and I helped him a bit with it. And his poem is about his love of words and that transformation that took place in him when he realised that an English word corresponded with a Chinese word. Now I wrote another one for him, and it's called excuse me. It's called Doctor Who's Last Words. You said not to hate winter, to put up with shivering showers, to relish churlish winds, stand up to influenza's grip, feel free in trussed-up clothes. You said not to hate a thing. This summer, camping in Calais, the rain rattling on the van roof, the west wind funneling furiously down the channel, I leaning into it as I went to get fresh bread for breakfast, and on Flanders roads the sight of my umbrella soaked on the van's rusty floor, the sound of wipers wearing down, and through the glass the constant grey of flat sky. How I loved everything.
Right. This goes back to Anna May. Yours was something you overheard that inspired you to write it. This was all, this is another one I was waiting to see the doctor in the hospital. There's only 2 hospital-based poems, but you just reminded me of this, because these 3 women, it was so funny. They were sitting in a row. They all had handbags on their knees, like the old 1970s, like Les Dawson sitting there. There were 2 older ones and 1 younger one. And they were just moaning for England about, waiting there and things like that. And it was just so funny. I just got my notebook out and started scribbling. I was literally taking the words down as they were saying them and noting what was going on around. And so this has got very little editing and sort of polished it up a bit, but it was kind of like, as it happens, live. These people. So it's called Waiting. I've been here since 10. The loud old woman with her handbag on her knees is trying to start a rebellion. It's working. I was here for 3 hours last time, said the middle-aged woman sitting next to her, with the teller-poised handbag, a trainee for the outraged older years of her companion. It's disgusting. The disgusted old woman sitting on trainee's other side crashed her own handbag onto her knees, emphasising complaint. The receptionist slumped down in her chair so less of her showed over the desk. I did actually go to see my own doctor, said trainee. He sent me here. Emphatic sigh. I've been here since 10, said Loud again. Who's in there now? Asked Disgusting. That got here at 10, like me. They fell into a thoughtful silence, brains whirring to find their next lamentation. 3 emphatic sighs. The receptionist turned her back and shredded paper, the noise masking the trio's reproaches. Haven't even had a cuppa, said Disgusting. Nothing since breakfast. A nurse takes pity on them. You're next, she tells trainee. Trainee pauses. How to make this news into a complaint. Who are you seeing then, says Loud. That woman doctor, the Indian one. Her head points to a handwritten sign, a temporary nameplate, sellotaped to the door. She's very nice, says Loud. Not like the other one, the man. Sees Disgusting. Does she disapprove of that particular doctor, or men in general? Purse-lipped, the women sit in a row like 3 wise monkeys with handbags, putting the NHS to rights.
I don't really know how this was born. I don't remember. It just is. You just stay there in your stuff. It ain't going to make me feel rough. I'm in search of me, embracing life as it should be. Yeah, I'm leaving you behind. And it ain't that I'm being unkind. It's just that it's your stuff. I ain't having it make me feel rough. Oh, you can say all you say about how you knew we'd end up this way. But I'm all words, no actions, you imply. Well, babe, it's your words cause my actions, and I ain't tired, you never lied. So you just stay there in your stuff. It ain't gonna make me feel rough. I'm in search of me, embracing life as it should be.
The Secret Lies Within was produced by me, John Trevelyan, with the support of Talliston House Gardens. It's a project where ordinary people have taken an ordinary place and transformed it and themselves into something quite extraordinary. Find out more at talliston.com.